Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at attacking with an overload. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be taking a look at 2v1 scenarios, but before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we got this week and the equipment that we'll be using. So in terms of players, we're going to have 13 players in total, 12 outfield players, plus our goalkeeper. Again, you can adapt that for more or less players. And if you don't have a goalkeeper, then you can just look to maybe put a coach or a volunteer or a parenting goal if you're working with younger age groups. Don't have access to any of that, small-sided goals or end zones instead. In terms of equipment for this week, we're looking at balls, bibs, cones, and then where we have some small-sided goals, you can look to use poles instead. So in terms of the setup for this part of the session, okay, we're going to go in terms of the attacking in here is going to be 35 yards. So literally from the goal line to here is 35 yards. You can bring it in a little bit less if you want, if you're working with younger age groups. And then in terms of width, you just want to give the players, in terms of, with it just being 2v1, if you're working on a half-size pitch, you don't want to be going outside the 18-yard box, okay? So you could even just go with 30 yards of width. If you don't have access to, obviously, pitch markings, just go 30 yards. You don't want to make it too big because it is only a 2v1 scenario. So you're going to split the group into two, 6 greens and 6 blues. So once one group attacks, the other group will then attack. Okay, so how it's going to start is the 2 blues look to drive into space, okay? Bring the defender, okay, out, so then we create that angle to play the ball, or if the defender stays back, can the other player keep driving with our support run, okay, trying to stretch the opposite, trying to stretch the defender. So it's all about attacking at speed and penetrating the space. As soon as that attack's over, so if we score, or if the ball goes wide, or if the defender wins it back, they look to play it into one of the goals, so it's a transition to play forward. As soon as the play is finished, the defender who started, okay, drops out. One of the attackers drops out at the start, okay, and then the next 2 greens come in to play. So what we'll have is one of the attackers start, so it could be either the player who scores or the opposite player, okay, so it's only at the start where one player will drop out. Then the next time, what we see is 2 greens come in against that 1 blue, and then we could get the support runs on the outside again. They look to score, same again. And then what we'll see then is the blue player dropping out, one of the green players dropping out. So the players can alternate defensively, so it can be the first time that the players go in their pairs, that one player defends, and then the next time they go, the other player defends, okay? So the players can just, each time, because we're going to be doing lots of repetitions, they take turns in terms of who's defending and who goes to the back of the queue. As soon as that ball's finished again, the next 2 blues come in. So we're looking for a player to drive into space, look for our support runs. So again, it's knowing your players, knowing your teammates, what foot. You could have a right footer and a left footer, so they might start on opposite sides. The right footer looks to drive on the right, with the left footer making that run across the defender to receive on the left foot and look to finish. But again, you've got to attack the defender at pace, okay? So if you slow them down, it's a bit too easy for them. Once you drive into the space and put them on the back foot, it means that we've got more chance of the ball going into our player, who's creating a space away from the defender to receive it and score. And also driving at speed, okay, and making quick decisions gives us more chance of getting past the defender to score. Same again, once it's finished, the green player will drop out, one of the blues will drop out, and then the next greens go in again. So we're looking for another 2v1 scenario. So you can create like a competition with the players in terms of whichever team scores the most goals, gets a point after, say, 2 reps each. So you could do, each team gets 6 repetitions, which would be 2 per group. And then every time a defender wins the ball back and plays into one of the goals, the teams can get a point as well. Okay, so we're focusing on that penetrating the space, the improvisation, creativity in the final third as well, and then our support runs to attack. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now focusing on a 3v2 attack and overload, and then we're focusing on receiving the ball from wide areas as well. In terms of the setup for this part of the session, so from the goal line to the centre-backs in here, we're going to go 25 yards, and then we're going to have a further 10 yards from the centre-backs to the strikers, so 35 yards, and then we're going to have an extra 10 yards from the striker to the wingers / attack midfielders in here. So in total, we're going 45 yards of depth. In terms of width, if you're working on half a pitch, you want the wide players to start just off the wide area, okay? So you could use as wide as you can go, really, on your pitches. If you're working with younger players, you bring it in a bit more narrow, so you could just do 20 yards either side, depending on the age group. And then if you're working with older players, look to increase it, okay? Because you're looking for that cross to come, can either be a cutback or a proper delivery, okay? So we want it to be from those wide areas. So we've got 4 defenders who'll swap over each time, 6 attackers, and then 2 crosses. So you're looking for your wingers or your fullbacks to be out there. So the ball starts with the coach, who looks to play into the player. So a little bit of movement to move out and receive the ball. They then look to play the ball into the winger, okay? The winger then has 2 options, okay, or an attack midfielder. They can either begin to drive with the ball, okay, straight away, or they can set it to the opposite winger, okay, or attack midfielder again, who can then move inside. So we're focusing on our movement, okay? So if the winger who receives it here decides to drive in straight away, we're looking for the striker to spin out on the side that they've played it, to create that space to drive through the centre of the pitch. And then can we look for the winger to increase some width out there, so as we're driving along, we get this movement on the outside. Try and bring the 2 defenders in. You've got to stretch the pitch, okay? And again, it's got to be at pace, at speed. Got to drive at a tempo and intensity, which puts the defenders on the back foot. And then it's all about timing of the pass to play into space, for a player to meet the ball and then finish. As soon as we've finished, these 3 players move to the back. These 3 players get themselves set. 2 defenders swap over, okay? And then what we have as well, before they do swap over, is that once we've finished the ball in here, it will either be right or left side receives the ball, okay? So we've got our players in here, touch out the feet, and then we're looking to either attack the box, and then we have player spare to obviously receive it on the cutback. We can get a player moving in here to receive the cutback. So when that crosser takes the touch out the feet, we're going to be looking for a player to attack the centre of the goal, okay? And another 2 players front and back post, and again the space on the edge of the box. It can be a cutback, and then we can look to combine quickly to then score, or it can be a cross in the box. So for the player delivering, you want them to assess the situation. If the defenders are deep here, off trying to stop the goal, can you play into space on the edge of the box for a player to open out and finish? If the defenders are quite high, okay, can we get runners into the box, okay, playing behind them and attack the ball and score? So we're getting 2 different scenarios there. Again, then the next time, the player in here can move out either way at the start, so this time he might move this way. Then they're playing to the winger, and again, spin off into space. This player might play across straight away, and then what do we see? We see runs across the defence. So we're driving through the centre of the pitch, okay, and we get runs either side. We might get a player driving across the defence, which then means we can get players running through the centre of the pitch, and then we're looking to finish. So again, it's got to be done at high intensity, okay, focusing on our creativity in the final third, our support runs, and then our confidence to drive with the ball as well, and then that final ball to put it into an area to score. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Okay, now moving into the final part of this week's session, we're now focusing on an overload in the final third, basing on pressing the ball, okay, and also by getting the ball into the final third. So in terms of the setup, in terms of depth, we're going to go 25 yards in each zone in here, so 50 yards total. Again, you can increase and decrease that based on the numbers that you have, but you want to give those players that extra bit of space to attack, okay? So if it's a little bit too big, you can bring it in 20 by 20. In terms of the width, inside here, okay, again, we're going to go 25 yards. And then on the outsides here, again, you can either be 5 or 10 yards. It's up to you, depending on how much room you want to give the players. But you could even just go halfway and just do 7 yards each side. So 25 in here, and let's say we go to 40. So just do 7 yards, 7 to 8 yards either side. So we split the pitch in half as well, so it's 5v5 plus the 2 floaters. So the blues are going to be attacking the goal, and the greens are going to be attacking in here. But what you can do is for the greens is if they score maybe 3 goals in these goals, they can swap over and attack the bigger goal then, okay? So it gives the incentive to press the ball. So we're focusing on creating an overload, but what you do is the yellows in here are the floaters, so then you get a 4v3. So the blues, when the ball gets played into them, try and work the ball. The wide players as well can play into this area as well to play through and then go and attack. So we create that overload in the final third. Okay, can we get our movement in behind the defence? Okay, stretch the pitch. We can get movement coming in and round. As soon as the player receives the ball, they might get closed down. Can we create that space to travel again? And then our movement getting in behind the defence to look to score. Now, if you score, regain possession again. So the ball will then go from the coach into this area again. So for the greens here, what they're trying to do is, can they press when the ball comes in centrally? If the ball goes wide, prevent that ball going forward. And it comes in centrally, okay, and it's travelling across. Can they look to go and pinch the ball, okay, to stop the blues from attacking? And then if they do win the ball, try and score in here to score. There's 1 out of the 3 goals, okay? They get a point for scoring, so they get a goal, and then it goes towards their total of getting 3 to swap over. After 3, you can then put the deeper players in here, attackers in there, and they swap over. For the blues, again, for these 2 players in here, it's moving the ball quickly. So trying to use those wide players, okay, to create that space and get those openings to play into our 3 attackers. And when we get in here again, penetrate the space quickly. Our support runs. Wide player gets the ball, can we get a player spinning out into space to create that avenue towards goal. So we're trying to create angles to shoot. So if a player stays in central here, we're blocking the goal. Get that route to goal, okay? Can the player see the goal? Shoot on sight, okay? So being clinical in that final third, our decision-making and our confidence on the ball. And again, that intensity to drive with the ball, that intensity to get in behind, to look to receive the ball, and then finish. If the goalkeeper saves the ball here, okay, then the greens just look to attack, try and get the ball into that final third, and then look to score. So we're focusing on both teams' ability to attack with the overload. One team focusing on getting the ball into the final third via possession, and one team looking to press the ball to win it back. And again, look, if these lose the ball in here, the blues can look to press to win it back as well, win the ball, set, and then try and score. Okay, so we're focusing on both sides of the ball, quick transitions, and getting the ball into an area where we can penetrate and score. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view all of our exclusive content. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.